we now have we have about 19 people here on island. We have a office in Manila where we have like five people. And then we have another partner that's not on the call today, Shriram. He heads up all of our software development work in India. And we do offer a number of things, as you can see, right? All of the stuff that we're doing for GAR, the desktop network support, Microsoft Office onboarding. We do a lot of consulting, and also we are a reseller for a number of platforms, including Doc Record, the Prism software that you're going to see a demo on. We are a reseller for online payments, a gateway. We have a number of clients on Guam that are currently using it: Guam Memorial Hospital, GPA, GWA, PFC. We do a lot of consulting work on island. We probably have, I think, around 12 clients here locally, but we are providing these services primarily to the small, medium-sized business market, right? Because we feel that that's really where the big needs are for IT services. And most importantly, I think a lot of the companies that we're working with, they don't have the internal IT staffing to support a lot of this cloud, digital transformation stuff. So that's really our mission in life on Guam, is to bring a lot of these services to the small, medium-sized businesses like GAR, right? So for today, I just wanted to throw this up there because we do have a lot of things that we offer our clients. But in particular, the real key thing about QTG is we rely on partners like Prism and other companies that we do business with to bring a lot of the advanced technologies to the island, because as you know, it's really hard to find skilled IT resources on Guam, right? So we do a lot of partnerships to bring our services here. With that in mind, we'll advance to the next slide, but I just thought it'd be important for you to understand who we are and what our capabilities are. So when we first started with GAR, we did the MS onboarding. We're now offering our managed services for your desktops and your networks. And then when we met with Sherry, I want to say maybe a month ago, to understand what the objectives were for GAR in terms of IT, she shared a lot of requirements with us. And one of the key things that we understood is that GAR is a very manual intensive operation today. Most everything is done manually. And one of the things that we saw is that in order to transform from a manual-based process to digital, you really have to have a solid understanding of your data. And one of the key things that we saw is that there are some major concepts in play at GAR, right? The member, first of all the information that you track about the member from the minute they onboard with an application to once they get accepted, there's a need to track a lot of information about your members. So that's a very key data concept that we saw at GAR. That is your universe, right? You're there to support the members. Secondly, there are agreements that they have with you, whether it's the MLS or the Supra. Those are major contractual documents that you do need to maintain with every member that you onboard at GAR. On the financial side, they make payments for dues and training and all other sorts of payment transactions. So there is another concept there, right? The billing, the invoicing, the payments, that's important information that you want to be able to track when you go digital. You're certainly doing it today manually, but there are a lot of pain points with a lot of these concepts that we're throwing up here. And then the other main thing that we saw was, the ability to track the trainings and certifications that all the members have to comply with so that you're doing your jobs, right? So those are the four main concepts that we came away with that were really important things from a data point of view. So we wanted to highlight this because any digital transformation or automation that you're going to do to your business operations, you really have to understand the data, because that is the foundation of all the things that you're going to do from a process point of view, right? Whether it's manual or whether it's automated through a piece of software, any of the integration that you hope to achieve, you really have to understand data and the relationships between the data. So that's an important thing we wanted to throw up there. Does that make sense? From a, okay, all right. So based on these initial meetings, the next slide we're going to throw up here is our view of what GAR would look like once you've made that transformation to digital. And I'm just going to highlight some things here so that it's important for you to understand things that you already own. Right, you have a website that's currently up there, and you have a member portal. They can see some documents. They can do some other things. There's a lot of information on the website. The other thing that you currently own today is you have MS Office, which gives you the Outlook client. You have the SharePoint now, the OneDrive in the cloud. So no more storing of files on the local desktops or in your GAR office, right? There are a lot of issues with that sort of setup. Now that we're migrating you to the cloud, you can access this data anywhere, right? From your phone, from your home, from whether you're traveling. So that's the key capability of now being cloud-based. All the updates to the desktops, all the software version, all that is handled seamlessly and continuously without you or us having to touch it. So that's a key thing that we're pointing out now. Before, everything was on your desktops. Now all the data is central, it's controlled, it's versioned, it's redundant, because we have multiple copies of your data, you'll never lose it. And it's very secure, right? And we can lock down the data so that we can control the access, who has read-only, who has update, access to all of that. So that's all there, and you're onboarded on that platform already. So those are key things that we wanted to point out. Currently today, the applications are manual. So what we are proposing is that for the future, once we automate this thing, your members can now register online on the portal. And we're going to show you through the demo how this thing is going to be possible, right? The other pain point that we heard is the payments. When they make their quarterly payments of their dues, they have to walk into your office, hand you a check, or mail it to you, and all of that process is basically a manual process, right? We are a reseller of Forte, which is an online payment gateway. I told you this is currently we're an authorized reseller for them. This can be integrated with your website with just a link. So you already have the website. This is a very easy piece to enable by just having it redirect from the current GAR website whenever they want to make a payment, and they just flow to this gateway, and you got that immediately, right? It's a very easy thing to implement. We can talk about that later, but the main thing here is that you have three main documents that you need to automate. That's the online, the application for the member, the checklists, and the agreements that we talked about earlier, right? So all of that, you need some way to automate that piece, and our recommendation is you already have Microsoft 365. What you're missing is the ability to scan all the documents that you have and make them digital. And this is now where we have introduced another, this is Bruce's, we're going to see the demo about. Doc Record is the enterprise document management that's going to make life a lot easier for GAR if you decide to move forward in this direction. And the important thing, and you're going to see all this in the demo, but it allows you to be able to scan all your documents so that you don't have any paper file cabinets anymore. There's no need for that unless you have to for compliance reasons. Everything can be digital and stored up in Doc Record. And the important thing about this platform, because it is a platform, it's all the integration capabilities that come with it. And things like other requirements is that you already have QuickBooks Online. The ability to integrate and capture data from the member file or the application and automatically feed that into your billing, right? You already have QuickBooks. We use QuickBooks as well. There are APIs. These are RESTful APIs that allow software to talk to each other. Doc Record as a platform has all of that out of the box as an integration component, right? Aristotle 360, I don't know if you use this for fundraising or donor management or whatever the use cases is for that, that also has RESTful APIs. So we are able to integrate and share data between Aristotle 360, QuickBooks, along with your member database in Doc Record. So that's a key point there that I wanted to bring up. And then the last thing is, by introducing Doc Record, right, going forward, if all your applications are digital, right, you eliminate that paper copy. Any other paper documents that GAR is handling, you should at the office or wherever you are now use your scanning option capability to capture the paper documents and put them in the doc record, and that is going to alleviate a whole lot of work down the road after you onboard members. So that's a key part of it. The other piece that I was going to point out is SQL Server. That's part of the Microsoft platform. It's also cloud-based. This is where we wanted to create the data for GAR, right? The member, the agreement information, the account information, all the things that allow you to track the information about the members, their accounts, the training and certifications. There is an express version of this database that's free. And because you're a Microsoft client already, right, you don't have to pay to get that capability. So these are all the things that I wanted to highlight, but Sherry gave me a link, but I just wanted to talk to you about Ramco. We spent, I think 3 of us spent almost an hour looking at that video. And the thing I want to say is this: for the simple things that GAR is doing in terms of what your operation is about, Ramco is a very rich platform for associations, for realtors, but it has so much functionality in it that I really don't think you would need all of it. I mean, from membership functionality to sales and invoicing, you already have that platform. Marketing, event planning, there's so much in that platform that I really don't think you're going to take advantage of. That's the first thing I would look at. There's no scanning capability in Ramco, right? So if you have this need to be able to continually scan documents, you're still going to have that little gap. The other point I would make out from a cost perspective, the licensing is about for 3 people. This is like $8,000 a year annually, right? Not to mention the onboarding and the installation. That's a key piece you need to consider. And the other part I want to bring up is the support piece, because one of the pain points that we have with all our clients here in Guam is we're never able to get support from our vendors. Either we're just not big fish right in the pond, we're always low priority, or the windows of service, there's not a huge overlap, especially if the vendors on the East Coast. Then your window's even smaller. And forget Monday, because it's Sunday there, right? And those sort of challenges we always see with clients, and that's one of the reasons why they onboard with us, right? Because we're local. We have an office here, so the support's also a very key thing. But in my professional opinion, you have a lot of the instruments that you need to automate, and really the big deal here is how do you create the integration so that you can achieve some efficiency, take advantage of the Microsoft platform that you already own, right? You're using Word, you're using Outlook. There's a lot of integration that we're going to be able to automate for you in terms of how you process an online registration. You're going to see that in the demo. And then all of those things that I'm saying is really going to be the key enablers for GAR to be a digital office. So that's kind of the overview that I see here. I think once you see the doc record platform, the ability to do the intelligent searches of all the scanned documents with the OCR, that's a huge, I think, productivity gain for GAR. The fact that everything's going to be integrated on your desktop, you already have the QuickBooks. Do you already have Aristotle? I didn't know that, Sherry. Is that something?
Yes, we use Aristotle for our RPAC, our Realtor Political Action Fund. So yes, we do use Aristotle. I also, Ivan, I think it's probably good to mention also that you did look at Growth Zone as well. So you looked at
I did.
Growth Zone as well as Ramco, the 2 that I sent you that
right. I did look at both. Yeah, we did look at both platforms, and this is not to say that Ramco can't do what you need it to do. My point of view is that you're buying a rocket ship to cross the street. Your needs are not that complex that you would benefit from paying that kind of money to onboard on a platform that's so comprehensive. I mean, there's everything in the universe is on that platform. And if you're only going to use less than 20% of the capability, you really have to figure out, is that a wise decision, right? To look at that. I think, you know, that's my point of view. Certainly can do what you need it to do, but you really have to understand what your needs are, and if it really makes sense to buy something so comprehensive that you're really not going to leverage all of it, right? That's the key piece. On the website, I think we offer that service as well. So making any of these changes, modernizing it, rewriting if you need to. I think there's a lot of stuff that you could do to enhance the usability of the website. It is kind of it could use some simplification and other things, but certainly the stuff that you want us to do, these are very easy things to implement in terms of automating the registration process for the apps, the online payments, like I mentioned. And then we just have to understand exactly what the integration needs are for QuickBooks, but all of those are, they all have those RESTful APIs, so there's no issue there. Any questions about our view?
I have a question. Because Grade right now accepts payments for certain classes, some have decided to cancel, and refunds seem to be an issue. I know that right now, Raj's, I guess, operations don't have the refunds readily available to provide the students. And so there's a wait time, sometimes 2-3 weeks. And so I channel that through NEAT to try to get the students' payments refunded. That's a concern.
Hey, Alvin, I think you're muted. You're
Mike,
talking.
you're on mute.
You're muted. Yeah, you're muted.
I didn't hear the beginning of your point there, but it sounded like you have people that signed up for training, paid for it, and didn't take the training, and they now want the money refunded?
No, the class did not make because there weren't enough students to, you know, run the class itself.
Okay.
So we sometimes cancel the class or we move it to another time frame, giving the student an option to just leave their money, you know, and carry it on to another class.
Right.
But they change their minds and say, no, I don't want to wait. Can I have my money back?
I see. Instead of a credit to apply to the next training.
Correct. But sometimes they don't want to wait till the next training. They want
Right.
immediate reimbursement.
I see. How is that process today? What is the pain point there? Because it's manual, or because I didn't understand the delay in the credit.
Well, and on my end, I inform Sherry or NEAT that the student wants their refund back. But when I contacted Raj and his group, they say they don't do refunds. So it's based on, you know, what our policies and procedures are. But in some cases, we do allow for the refund based on what, you know, if it's our negligence not to host the class or whatever the case may be. There's a wait time of sometimes 3 weeks or more to get the refund back to the student.
Right. So I was going to ask this question. Thanks for that. That's a great explanation. But do you currently use QuickBooks for your billing and invoicing, right?
We're working on that.
Okay.
I think I told you we were going from QuickBooks Desktop to QuickBooks Online.
Okay.
And so that's what we're working on with our CPA right now. But I think what Lolita is also referring to is that I don't think we know, unless Lolita knows, what kind of payment system Guam Webs uses. because we don't get, our portion of the fees sometimes for 3 or 4 months as well. And so if a member wants to get a refund, it's like they don't talk to each other. I guess that's probably
Yeah.
the easy
Right.
way to say it.
Yeah, no, I was gonna ask that question because it sounds like they have the payment capability on the website, but what I was thinking, Sherry, is for that particular example, if you have the QuickBooks online and you have ACH capability, right? If
Yep.
you're managing the billing and the invoices, you're just using the gateway to make the payments online, but the credit should be issued through QuickBooks so that you can just do the ACH to reverse the charge yourself. You shouldn't have to rely on the payment vendor on the web to do that. They're just, the convenience there is just making the payment. But if you have a member that makes a request for a refund, you can do that with QuickBooks if you have the information about the transaction, right? We do that here. And that's an ACH debit transaction where we can reverse it ourselves, so you don't have to wait. The convenience of the gateway is just to facilitate the payment transaction, but any things that related to disputes or reversal of funds, you can affect that yourself within QuickBooks and generate the refund directly out of your account that the money got deposited into, right into the member's account. So perhaps that's a solution to your question. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I think that's probably the biggest issue, is that we don't really know how many people have signed up for classes and what the process is to pay GAR for those classes. And sometimes, like I said earlier, we don't get that information for a couple of months. So it's kind of hard to figure out who attended, who didn't attend,
Right.
give them a refund when we haven't even gotten paid, for the classes months later. So there's like a disconnect.
Yeah. I would say that, we need to probably have a little working session about that, because it sounds like, if you can't track the data, so you don't know when the client has paid for the training, that's one problem. You need to be aware, right? So when they sign up for training, how are they letting you know today would be the question.
Right. And sometimes we don't know. And Lolita, I think, knows a little more than we find out, because sometimes we don't even know a class is canceled because there wasn't enough members to be in the class. And again, I just think there's a disconnect between WOMWebs and us and what system they use.
Let me ask on the training, is there a single vendor that does all the training for your clients, or?
Do they have the contract with Raj?
No, we use a few, right, Lolita?
I didn't hear the question. Can you repeat that?
Your training vendors today, are there one or several that the members can go for training?
We've got different vendors that present classes, and some are brokers, some are members, are third party. So we have a slew of people who teach the classes. But I was just thinking on the side brainstorm note with Jody that perhaps maybe we need to take a look at how our members pay for classes rather than them paying upfront for classes. Maybe we can hold off on them paying until we know for sure that the class will go. Our magic number is between 8 to 10. And once we establish that 10th member, then we need to probably give a deadline for payment rather than getting payment at the on-site for the registration. Let's get the registration first, and then we maybe get payment that way. That will alleviate any chances for refunds or whatever the case may be.
So,
Does that
okay.
make sense?
Yeah, that makes sense. But for the training registration, they go directly to the vendor's website? How do they sign up for training?
Right on the our website, the great website that's
Oh,
tied to this whole quantum
okay.
technology group.
All right, so I would say at that point, when they sign up for a training on your website, you should be creating a record in your database. Remember, this is that model we showed earlier with the training. That's gonna track all the training for each member that GAR manages.
Well,
So,
can I just interject again, Michael? Um, they gave us, Sherry, myself, Liza, and Neat access to take a look at the registration. And it's, to me, I'm not a techie person. It's all convoluted. I don't know exactly how to decipher um, the registrations and how many people signed up, because at a glance, I see all these classes. They're not even in order, and my eyes go bonkers. So, coming from a non-technology person, um, I I'm just at a loss. So I call Liza. Liza, how many people do we have registered? You know, because I used to go on to Webcare and ask Raj's group, how many people do we have registered? And then I get the information. But I guess because there's so many classes that I put together, they decided you can check it. And so they gave me access, but I'm, being honest, I'm not the
um,
best person to go and find out exactly what those numbers are.
yeah,
And
you
it should
know,
be automated.
what I would suggest, I think, is a session that we sit down and just walk through your training process, right? How people sign up, how they register, how you schedule, how you track, and how you complete so that you get a certificate to upload into your system, right? There's a life cycle of that training that every member is going to go through. We should sit down and understand that, and then understand what your vendor, the website person, what they're doing to automate that process for you. Uh, right, if you have multiple vendors that are offering the training, that means somebody's aggregating all of the training classes, the curriculum, and people can pick and choose, it sounds like. But once they pick something, it starts a process where you guys now have to track, right? Somebody signed up. Do we have enough seats for that class? If we do, the class gets scheduled, it gets held, and then they complete the training. So that whole life cycle, we should probably sit down and figure out what are the pain points, what are the requirements, and then solution it for you. But it sounds like it's not so intuitive, and certainly not automated as it should be.
It is definitely not user friendly.
Right. So I think that that's really worth a working session, right? Just so we can understand what exactly is the scope, what are the requirements, what are you currently using as far as the vendors, and that whole process before I think you can approach with a solution. But I think the key thing that I'm seeing is that,
Lisa has a question.
go ahead, Liza.
Oh, sorry, Ivan. I mean, if I may, I think bottom line is the organization of our website, including Great, is not efficient and it's really hard to use. And thanks for clarifying why you call me when you have access. Because I was like, wait, hold on. You have access to this. It's confusing for me too, and it doesn't make any sense. So I think what Lolita is saying is we need help in that department. And I
Yeah.
think, and we've discussed this, Ivan, and Ivan is going to also probably include on the side what he would charge to actually take over our web page, and I believe that he could also organize it so to our needs a lot better. I don't see why there's two accesses to our great website, one to access who paid and whatnot, which is completely confusing, and the filters don't make any sense to me. And then we also have an access to the actual dashboard of the great website. So I'm sure, and I know that Ivan's team can put that in one place and also help us revamp our GAR website and make it a lot more efficient for us to use. And I think also, if I understand it, is because Ivan's a third party, to do these things, he needs to get codes and links from Guam Rebs. So if we had the opportunity to maybe bundle this together, that would alleviate that third party section, and we can just go to Ivan and his team for everything we need to change and all the concerns. And I'm pretty confident that he could give us everything that we request or need, or make suggestions to make it a lot easier and efficient for us. Just wanted
And
to say
cost
that.
effective.
Yes. Kind of like a one-stop shop.
Thanks for that, Liza. I certainly, I think that it's really a process, right, of going through understanding what the requirements are for your training, understanding what the requirements are for the dashboard. We can certainly reorganize the website. It is a little bit difficult to navigate. We were on that. I had Tookie looking at it as well. We have a lot of experience developing websites and payments and all of that stuff, right? But I think the bottom line is you need to understand the process before you solution a design on how you're going to automate things. So that's the first step. We would have a workshop with you. And then, of course, we can talk about the website maintenance piece. We're happy to take on that work. But I think just trying to speak to the points that are being voiced today, sounds like training is a major challenge in terms of managing it, and much less just tracking the certifications. But it sounds like there's a lot of pain points around it. But that would be the recommendation, is just sit down and understand what is the process that you go through, or that each member does for the training. On the website, we would have to look at it. I think we need to understand what's all there. And that's another workshop, right, where we sit down and figure out what exactly are you wanting to have on the site. There's a member portal we weren't able to access, but it seems like it's a lot of static content that they can download, but we're not sure beyond that what's there. Yes, Lolita?
Yeah, another point, Mike. In talking to some of the members, a lot of them are having issues also trying to access the member portal and register for the classes. And so I've had to walk several members through the process and bypass some systems because they couldn't get in. And so we brought that up to our other vendor, and they didn't see anything wrong, but there's a lot of things that are not going right for our members as well. So yeah, getting into our member portal is problematic.
I see. Well, that's not good. Yeah.
From what I'm hearing, you can probably evaluate you are already evaluating our current uses and pulling it together and developing you have the system to incorporate all the different software and applications, correct?
That's correct, Liz.
Sounds good to me.
Yeah, the key thing again, right, is we're leveraging things that you already have, the Microsoft Outlook, the whole M365 platform. You have SharePoint, you have the desktop, you have all of that software already. The SQL Server database, I said, because it's such a small organization, there's a free version, and you can always upgrade if you were to get bigger, but it's not an additional cost. And I think when you look at the core of this is what the demo is going to show us. I think we have 15 minutes here. Why don't we go through the demo so you can see this thing that I think got Liza and Sherry really interested in the quantum solution. And then if you guys don't have a hard stop, we can take on more questions. Does that sound good?
Perfect.
All right, Bruce, I'm going to turn it
Perfect.
over to you.
Oh, appreciate that. And let me kind of piggyback on what I've kind of heard, listening to the conversation, because I want to say a point that you mentioned, Lolita, is so spot on. You're not technical, nor should you have to be, but you know your business process is better than anybody. And I'm saying that for a reason as I'm kind of listening to the conversation going back and forth. I'm going to share a doc record with you in just a moment, but I'm going to go back to a comment that Ivan mentioned at the very beginning about this. It's a platform. And the reason why that's so critical as I'm sitting here listening to the conversation, the one thing I share with a lot of customers that just like you, you're starting to go from paper to electronic. Document imaging is not your core business. You're not paid to know that. But as I'm listening to the conversation points, you know your business processes the challenge you're facing better than anybody. And what you're doing right now, you're reaching out to an organization like Quantum to say, okay, we know what we don't know, but we realize that there's got to be a much, much better way of doing things than we've done before in the past. And I think that's just I'm kind of hearing this kind of conversation. I think there's a lot of ways we can definitely help approach that. I say that for a reason. I'm not going to ask anybody on today's call to understand our architecture. And that's very important. I'm going to go back to that comment about a platform because the way that Doc Record is licensed and the way it's structured, it's based upon a number of concurrent users or the number of people that actively use the system at the exact same time. But we give you everything. And one of the things I'm listed a commentary about the registration for the forms or class, to me, that's an e-form. It's data. And that could be a conversation point in terms of a leader point in terms of tracked information, because when I look at an e-form, there's two things I'm going to do for an e-form. Either I want to simply take the information and store that document like your membership application shown in a second to be retrieved somewhere, or I want to do simple the data off that particular form. It might be a registration of a student, what type of class you're getting registered for. But now once to Ivan's point, once you understand what that data is going to, how can you basically take that information, that data, and have something that's usable that makes sense to you? That's the biggest key. I think to me, that's the biggest thing that I think that quantum's going to bring to the technology from you. And you have a great resource right there locally with you that can really kind of sit down with you, have those type of conversations, and really kind of help that digital transformation be much, much more streamlined as well, too. Because it doesn't have to be hard if you have the right resources and people to help assist you. And I think you have a great resource of quantum to do that for you also. So what I'll do, I'm going to be respectful of the time as well. I'm going to kind of share with you some of the people that have seen Doc Record before. The one thing that they've mentioned, and the one thing I was kind of point out to people that see Doc Record for the very first time, just like where you are right now, you're looking to make a change to go from paper to electronic. So first of all, can everybody see my screen? All right, Mike, is it perfect? So the one thing about this, I'm going to bring up a comment that was made before. What I'm showing to you here is the Doc Record desktop client. As you're seeing this for the first time, some of you, this looks just like Windows. It's designed to be that way purposely for a reason. Just like you, if you used to work with Windows-based applications like SharePoint or Outlook or Word for that matter as well, this is not going to intimidate anybody that sees it the very, very first time. And I always point this out to people that see this as you're clicking this around here. It's very critical in terms of this to have something that's going to be easy for anybody that's brand new to a system like this to, again, focus on the information. So as you see me clicking around with this, it has a very Windows-centric type look and feel, just like your desktops today. And the one thing about this is you see me going through this here, the same ribbon structure that you see from any Windows-based applications, Word, Excel, PowerPoint, it's built into it. If I were to, again, right click as an example, the same type of, if I'm on Windows 10 or Windows 11, what have you as well too, as for example, the context window that may pop up in your Windows as well too on your desktop, all that information is built into the application. I point this out to people that see this for the very first time. It's a very seamless transition to what you're doing today to work along with Doc Record. And that's really going to be very, very critical because the key to Doc Record, and I'm going to show what I showed beforehand, is really what we call a category. The way I kind of explain a category to any customer you talk to in the world of Doc Record, a category is really nothing more than a document type. And really the rules that you decide, you can define how you want to manage those document types with Doc Record. And I'm pointing out this to kind of give you an idea in terms of really how simple this is for us to build by simply having the conversation we're having today. So I took a look at some of the membership documents. I'll show how this information gets in from the scanning perspective in just a moment. But if I'm looking at your documents, I'm going to point out a couple different fields here that really resonates well and really kind of show you exactly how easy this could be implemented in your environment as well. So the first question I would ask of you, if I need to find some of your documents, the first question I ask is what information would be important to you if I'm a user to quickly find the document? We build it right here for you by simply having a conversation. When I looked at some of those sample documents before, I said, if I'm looking at maybe first name, last name, that nickname I saw in the application, real estate license number, all this right here you're seeing is fully customizable. It's really a matter of talking to you and find out, you know your documents, your document types better than anybody. What makes sense to you? We easily build it here right here for you. Audit policies. A lot of people we talk to, security is very important to them. And a huge advantage of doc record from a security perspective that once that document's managed by doc record, if I want to know, for example, who looked at a document, who printed a document, who tried to make a change to the document, all the activity but really can be tracked by that person's login credentials. That's a rule that you can apply. It's really just that simple for us, checking a box right here for you. Retention policies. You can keep documents forever inside of doc record. But let's say, for example, maybe certain type of documents you might want to keep, let's say, for example, for 10 years. As an example here, this is how easy you can apply a rule like this within doc record. If I say, for example, keep certain documents for 10 years, I'm going to simply tell doc record after 10 years, what do I want doc record to do those documents? I might want to move them to an archive folder, maybe delete these documents or maybe purge them entirely altogether because you simply just don't need them any longer. Again, these are nothing more than rules that you're defining how you want to manage your own documents. It gives control and the power really back to you. The part that resonates to a lot of the people I did the initial demo for is right here, this document policy. And I point this out purposely for a reason because when I looked at the Ramco application, I know it's managed basically the backbone's Microsoft Dynamics. And I say that for a reason. I have this conversation, a lot of people that use applications like Dynamics or in your case, Ramco. Again, just like Ivan mentioned, a great application, but it's not really meant for it to be a content type management system in terms of maybe easily finding documents here. This is the part that I know from the initial demo I did resonated well to a lot of people. As these documents get into the system itself, if there's a way that makes sense to organize these documents, I know that putting everything to a member folder is important here. We can automate that process right here for you. Because what I can literally do, these index fields I showed you a moment ago, by me simply right-clicking these, I can simply use this as variables or information to dynamically name files I want to, organize and build this folder structure, and I'll show you how this works live in just a moment based upon the rules that make sense for me. The beauty behind this is it's always going to follow a structure that you've predefined so your documents don't get lost, or don't get misplaced, but you can easily organize that and quickly find those documents. Keep in mind, as we start to talk about doc record, any type of document can be stored in here, like a member application, some of the things I saw beforehand. It might be, for example, a registration form too, for that matter, for classes. All this really is nothing more than document types and rules that you can define how you want to manage your document types, okay? So before I show you how we can get documents into doc record, I'm going to show one of the biggest things that people want to do is I want to find a document, right? And I'm going to show you the number of ways you can simply do that. One way a person could find the document, I put some documents in here previously, is doing exactly what I'm doing right now, clicking through folders. Because some people I talk to kind of like that Windows Explorer type look and feel. If this is easier for certain people here, I'm not going to force that person to have to change. If this is more easier for them in terms of me going through folders, because again, I can organize this by the members as well too. You notice that once I click a particular document, I see the document right here, also right below the index information, and these are all index fields I can search upon as well too. So this is one way if I'm that user, I can quickly and easily find a document inside of doc record. If I wanted to take a closer look at that document, literally all I simply do is double click it. And what happens, this opens up a new window called my document view mode, and it simply just allows me to take a closer look at the actual document here. If I needed to share this document out using the same ribbon structure for Windows and go right to the file tab, I can do a file print, okay? And whatever printers that person has access to print out a hard copy, it's just that simple. Email it. There's an email icon right next to it, automatically adds that document as an attachment. At that point, I can email this like I send any email to anybody today. So that's one way a person could search and find the document just that easy, that Windows Explorer type look and feel. Now, I do a number of demos. So you can see there's a lot of folders I have right here in my particular system. Here's something else you could do. If I know I'm going to search the same types of information over and over again, we can also basically build a query where we simply prompt you for the information you're looking for. Again, the key is we're trying to make this as easy as possible for you to quickly find the document. So if I'm going to look, for example, certain type of document types, okay, I can choose my document types right here, okay? And information shows up, again, seconds. The key behind this is getting this information to somebody as quickly as possible. As you start to transition from the boxes of different type of documents you do have, this makes it really in a matter of seconds to quickly get the information here. Make sense so far? Okay. Let me show you how to get a document into. This is one of the biggest things that I've mentioned before about the scanning components as well too. So I'm going to go ahead and let me preface by saying this. I'm logged in as an administrator, so I can see or do anything inside a doc record. So important safety tip. Because what I'm about to do, I'm about to purge this document out here right now. And let me kind of share with you a huge strength that doc record also offers here. So what I want to do is, the only reason I can do what I'm doing right now is because I'm logged in as an administrator. So I want to simply go ahead and wipe out this BWB Realty folder, my fictitious company. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and purge this from the system. All right. Always going to prompt me to make sure I'm sure. I want to take this information out. So if I go right back to this folder structure, what you notice in here, if I go right back to that destination, okay, that BWB Realty folder is going now. So for the scanning perspective, all those boxes of documents you have right now, here's exactly what we'll do with doc record. I'm going to kind of simulate how simple this process is going to be. So what will happen is, within the scanning perspective, I'm going to kind of simulate this right here. Let's pretend that this is a stack of paper documents here at this point. And what I want to do is I want to simply scan these documents and get the information into doc record. So what I'm doing is I'm simply simulating this operation here. All right. All right, so let me go ahead and minimize this here. My Windows is hanging up on here for a second here. Give me just a second here. There we go. I popped up a lot of folders here all of a sudden. All right, there you go. So let me go ahead and simulate this operation. All right, so let's say what I want to do is I want to get that information, that document, into doc record. All right, so let me kind of simulate in terms of what's actually happening here at this point. So what I want to do is I want to simply get that document. Let's say it's a batch of documents for a Bruce Brown here. All right. So let me kind of explain what's kind of happening behind the scenes. And I'm just kind of showing it to you with it. The goal for this is you simply want to get the document into doc record so it can be retrieved. But this is how Quantum will be able to simply easily take this information and start to automate the process of getting information into doc record for you here. So literally what we can do is I'm simply creating a cover sheet, right? So in this case, I'm putting the information I want to have for these document types. Again, first name, last name, nickname, real estate number, and office name here at this point. Again, all this is customizable. It really comes back down to you, what information would be important to you to quickly find a document. But here's the power behind doc record. All these documents I have behind the scenes, these are documents that you're going to have that are paper-based right now. What we can simply do is, if I'm scanning those documents, all the Quantum team's going to do is simply create those cover sheets, simply scan the documents, put them into document feeder scan, and they're done. And what happens is we simply have some logic behind the scenes, and that logic is going to simply tell our software, look at that cover sheet, get the information off the cover sheet, throw it away. But all those document types behind that cover sheet, we're going to automatically use some logic to split up the specific document types, take the index information off that cover sheet, and route that information to doc record. Okay, all that's done behind the scenes here. And that's really how easily that the Quantum team will be able to take that scanning process for you here. So now if I go back to my particular system, and let me go ahead and refresh my view here for just a moment. All right. And if I go back to my member documents, there's that BWB Realty. Okay. If I go back to it, like I mentioned before, it automatically split those documents up. Again, this checklist I put in here, the index information. But this is really going for all those paper boxes you have. This is how Quantum will be able to go ahead and get the information back into the system just that easily here. And like I mentioned previously, once I got this index information, which is important to you in terms of what index criteria, I simply automatically knew how to name the documents and how to basically organize it in my member folder here. So now it becomes retrievable. So that's a very, very easy way to get rid of your paper-based documents, get that into doc record. So now it becomes usable information to quickly retrieve your desktop. Make sense? All right. So the last thing I do want to share with you, because we kind of talked about that membership application beforehand, because when I talked to the Quantum team initially, And I know the guard team kind of shared this information with me previously as well, that I know the current process is much more manual. What I understand is that when people have to get these applications, they have to simply go to the offices, they'll simply take the application back to their house, complete the information, and at that point in time, mail the information back to them to process that, right? So that's a lot of steps. I'm going to show you how easy this process could be with Doc Record. And this gets back down to what I mentioned before, why I'm not going to ask you to understand our architecture. So what we can do is literally, I'm clicking a link here, and this is how this will be presented to your particular users here. Just like you're doing today, they can go to your website, right? This form looks pretty familiar, all right? So literally what could happen, a member, potential member can simply go to your website, click a link, just like they could do today here. But here becomes the difference in the power behind Doc Record. Once I click on this link right now, anything I have asterisks right here means, and the way I set this form up is a required field. So what I can do if I'm that member, I can click a link, I can start to complete the information, all right? So let's say, for example, I want to put in here Bill Johnson or something like that, all right? And I'm simply just putting in some information here, okay? BBJ here, Realty. And really all that member would simply do, and I'll make up a number here, and I'm getting to a reason in terms of how this process could work. Because really, once that user can fill out this information, and I'm doing this right here purposely for a reason, because I use myself as an example. I can click boxes here, but here's the main thing I'm going to also show to you also is this part. I noticed when I looked at your application the first time that sometimes people might need to upload supporting documentations to this particular member application. We can also do that within Doc Record as well too. So if I need to go ahead and upload some supporting documentation along with this, I can simply, again, browse to a location. I'll simply just take a couple of these documents here. And along with my application, I can simply take this information and upload that along with my particular forms to you. Once this applicant has kind of complete this information, all they really have to do right now is simply press the submit button, okay? Once that particular person presses that submit button at this particular point in time, they're done. That's all they had to do. Now, this is the power behind this being tied to Doc Record, again, being a content management system. So if I walk through that process, I don't have to go to your offices any longer to kind of fill out an information, fill out that by hand, and maybe have to mail it back or scan it back. And I use myself as an example. I have atrocious handwriting. And I can't tell you how many times I've had this conversation with people. If somebody filled out some information by hand and you can't read what somebody's written down, that will stop your entire business process because it's not legible, right? But this email you saw right now, this has all been automated. So let's say I'm that applicant, I submit that form. So now it goes back to somebody within GAR. The message you're seeing right here, all this right here has been automated. I automate what I want the subject line to say in the email, what I want in the body of the email. All this right here is customizable. And this becomes, again, this being a platform, you could have it say whatever you wanted to say here. But the key is now that once that applicant, kind of getting back to that question that Lolita brought up before about maybe somebody completing the form, and I want to know exactly who got registered, when they registered, you're seeing what this kind of heads to right now. That's just, to me, it's an e-form. But now I can be, to your point, notified, because at the end of information, like really Ivan mentioned, all this is stored in a database somewhere. It's simply a matter of getting that information, that data, and having something usable with that as well too. So since I have this tied now to a workflow at this particular point in time, what I can literally do, I can simply go right back here to Doc Record at this point. I'm going to do this from the web client this time, purposely for a reason. I'm going to show you something else that Doc Record could do in terms of where this might expand into also. So let's say, for example, that form got into Doc Record, and I can also access Doc Record via browser as well if you wanted to, all right? So what happens is, if I go to my workflow inbox here, here's that document, okay? I converted this right here to a form, okay? So now if I need to approve this, reject this information, okay, I can have my approve, reject button. These buttons could say anything here, okay? At this point, kind of like Ivan's point, we just have to understand what your business process is. A number of people do, for example, review an applicant for admission. Again, it's a matter of understanding what is your particular business process to get somebody approved here. But to the user, this is how simple this could be. If I approve it, okay, I can be prompted for some comments, okay? I can say, welcome aboard, or where those comments are. If I can type, okay, and okay. But this is literally how simple that particular process could be to get that information inside of Doc Record. Now, in addition to that, as I mentioned previously, that folder structure you saw beforehand, I'm going to see the exact same thing here also, okay? my member, my applications, okay? Here's that BB Realty. As I mentioned before, that data, it automatically created that folder, organizational structure, because all that information, keep in mind, it's data. So if you want to have this information go to that respective member folder, once they've submitted the application, okay, it automatically gets sent to somebody within GAR to process that. It automatically goes to a respective member folder, and this is really how simple that process could be. At the end, that email I saw before, because I know there's an email is one of the fields that you had on that particular form also. It could be an email sent back to that applicant, hey, welcome aboard, if you want those comments to travel to the next individual. But this kind of gives you an idea really how seamless this process could be. And like I mentioned at the very beginning, you know your business processes better than anybody. The challenge you're facing right now is, okay, there's got to be a much, much better way. Let's kind of talk about that and find out what are some of those approaches we can simply take. But just like I mentioned before previously, if I simply were to go back to that particular form here, the last thing I do want to share with you, okay? And hopefully this kind of gives you an idea why I know definitely Sherry's very, very excited to get some other people to take a look at this, because this is really how easy this could be in terms of incorporating this into your overall business process. Now, the reason why I logged in via the web client a moment ago as well, because as an administrator, I can see and do anything inside the system itself. Here's something else for references for future thinking points too. I'm going to log out of this. I'm going to log in as a different user. And I'm doing this purposely right here for a reason, okay? Just to give you an idea in terms of what else is also possible with the particular system here, all right? So if I log in as a different user at this particular point in time, okay, I'm logging in here for a reason, all right? So once I go to this, based upon this login credentials, this is all I could see. So I'm saying this for a reason. If you want to control access, but also access rights based upon a login credential, that can easily be controlled within doc record as well too. So by all means, it might be maybe granting members access to their own type of documents if you wanted to. You kind of see where this is heading to. Based upon the login credentials, they can only see their particular information as well too. But the other thing I want to kind of also reiterate is when I put that document into doc record just a moment ago for that member application, if I go right back here to that particular folder as well, as I mentioned, there's that particular document here. But if I open that information up at this point in time, the last thing I'll kind of share and kind of talk about as well too, is once I open up that particular document, okay, you're going to notice at this particular point in time, the actual form that you see here in just a moment, to refresh here. Okay. So there's that form that I would have completed previously. But here's the other part as well too. If I go to my file list, those documents I put in beforehand, the supporting documentation, it's right there. Okay. So now, just like I mentioned, if they need to attach, for example, along with the application, maybe some supporting documentation for any form for that matter as well too. That's something by all means, we can definitely leverage that within doc record as well too. So I know I want to make sure I'm very respectful of everybody's time here, but hopefully this kind of gives you an idea about what's possible, but more importantly, how easy this could be just by having the conversation you're starting to have right now to incorporate in your environment. But I think as I was taking some notes, I think that the challenge you're facing right now in terms of that registration, to me, that could be a simple e-form. And if the quantum team is going to start to basically manage that website, it's simply a matter of building that form. And once the information gets completed, checked in, that's simply data off that form. And so now if somebody like Lee want to have some type of report to say, hey, how many people may have registered by this particular date and time, that now could be a conversation point you can start to have as well too. Okay.
Bruce, thank you. Thank you so much. I know we're a little bit over our 1 hour mark, but any questions or comments about the demo?
It's Sherry. I want to just also add, Bruce, because I know we had talked about this last time. One of the other pieces of our many documents that we have to control is our continuing education credits. So all of our, all of our members get a certificate that we put inside their folder, a paper certificate, and that's how we can tell how many continuous education credits a member has. With this system, everything will all be automated where the member can then go in and say, I'm lacking 5 credits. Here's what classes I can take automatically without having to call us and us having to go pull their file out, add up all their credits, and then figure out how to get them to the great website to, take more classes. So that's one of the other big pieces that we're excited
Right.
about being automated.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
I think that, and I'll turn it back to the quantum team in a second, but you kind of hit the nail on the head as well. This is why we're so excited to have this conversation being a platform, because as I mentioned, your business and your business processes better than anybody. And I think that again, with the quantum team, they're definitely going to be very, very diligent. And just like they've mentioned before, they're going to sit down with you and kind of walk through the information step by step, because again, you're not the technology experts, they are. And they'll be a very strong trusted provider. I'm simply just a vehicle to work with them as well to help assist you guys going from paper to electronic. And I'm happy to help in any way I can.
And that's a good point, Sherry, because we did mention in the prior demo, right, that the ability for the members themselves to go into Doc Record and we could control the access to be able to view their own information, right? And one of them was the training certificate. So, back to the data again, that is the foundation of going digital. If you have access and control of your data, you can be informed of every state of the life cycle for the training, for the billing, all that information at your fingertips, and the ability to do the search and for them to do the search on their end through the internet. That is an experience that they don't enjoy today, and I think is going to be much appreciated, right? Is self-service. I mean, that is the key thing today. Everybody wants to do it on their own, and unless they need you, let them access, right? And that's the goodness of our internet and being connected. And the data is so fundamentally important to enabling that experience, right? Our job is to integrate the things so that it's easy and intuitive. And you don't have the pain points and the frustration because they can't find things or they can't complete the simple tasks that we're making self-service to them. So that kind of speaks to design and usability, right? You need to know how to enable that self-service channel so that it's very easy to use. And data makes things easy, right? If we understand the process and give them the information, you should be doing less work in the GAR back office to make these experiences real for the members. And that's what we're about, is really transforming the digital, right, to be totally automated as much as we can. And that's the goal, I think, with GAR. So that was the demo. I hope you got a lot of value out of that. I think there's so much potential for GAR to simplify things with Doc Record and all the integration with MS 365 and all the things that we can do. I think it's really just a matter of sitting down and understanding what the requirements are. But we're happy to answer any questions at this point before we end the meeting.
If I may, like, one of my favorite things about this software is how organized it is. And those of you who know me, I love organization. So this is like my favorite ice cream. And one of the things that Bruce did not mention, which is one of my favorites, is the fact that when these documents are downloaded, and they're already recognized and they all have the same file name. So they'll all be put in these folders with the exact same file description as to each, as each form is. So we don't have to name the super agreement 3 different names because we're manually putting it in there. If Doc Record recognizes that document, it'll always be one name connected to that one person. So that's one of my favorite things. And another thing is, if we get to get QTG to kind of be like a one-stop shop, everything could be automated. And I mean, payments and records. And one of my favorite parts too is the fact that members are privy to come into the office and take a look at their folders. This way they can actually look at it. And it is it is tedious for us to get phone calls and be like, oh, how many credits do I have? And have to figure out, okay, did they pay for these? Because we figured out their system, but at the same time, it's like, now the first thing we have to deal with is everything alphabetized? Can we actually find it? Were there transfers? Did they go somewhere else? So that's our first challenge initially. And then we have to get all the documents that are in there and figure out how many credits. And believe it or not, we get questions like, do these credits expire? But they they don't expire, their credits, but they only work within your term, right? So, or they only count toward your credits within your term. So it's kind of this is just exciting for me. So thank you so much, team,
Awesome.
for introducing doc record to us.
Awesome, thank you. Well, I know we have a number of proposals in the GAR, and I think one of the most pressing ones, of course, right, is clearing out the office so you have more room to breathe there. One of the things that was preventing us from moving forward is where do we put the digital images once they're scanned, right? So right off the bat, that's $400 that goes away because you don't have to buy some external drives and just put it into the cloud like where the M365 is. So I think lots of opportunity to simplify the work and get you guys into the digital world, and that's the goal of TTG. So,
Oh, Ivan, if I may, could you explain to them that we're paying for the service and that the software belongs to us when we purchase it, doesn't go anywhere else, and the information also stays within us, and then the backup reasoning and stuff like that.
Right.
So maybe the board would need to hear that.
Absolutely. So
that logic.
For the doc record, the licenses are perpetual, right? And it's only by concurrent users. So once you buy the license, you own it for forever, pretty much, right? And the data is yours, of course. If at any point GAR wants to convert to some other platform, that is certainly doable, right? With some extraction capabilities. So that's no problem. The maintenance, of course, is a recurring fee. We do have to keep the software up to date, apply all the patches, but there's no other license renewal fees. When you compare that to Ramco, right, that's $8,000 every year that you would pay for 3 users. So that's one key difference. On the data recovery and backup, there are 3 copies: the production, the backup, and a failover. So you will never lose your information. And the secure thing about it, right, is it's on the MS platform, right? Everything is encrypted in doc record. Lolita, you have a question?
I do have a question. How often do you guys do backup and recovery?
Excellent question. Mike, you want
Certainly. So from the point of view of the failover piece, right? So there will actually be, whenever a copy is uploaded into the environment, there will already be another copy of the data, right? So essentially, while it's running, there's 2 copies, and then there will be a periodic snapshot that will occur, and we can say that that'll be maybe hourly up to date. That's probably the best way to look at it from a high level perspective.
Thank you. Good to know.
Yep.
Yeah, and then the other note was that data also at least one of the copies will be in a right, geographically separated. So if in the event that something happens to the Cloud City location where it was hosted, it'll be available elsewhere.
One more, in terms of security awareness training, I know that in your previous contract that the board was reviewing, it was indicated as an option. I'm not sure if GAR wants to include that as part of the package.
Great question. We highly recommend that. They didn't select it, but it is an option, and we do offer that. You should offer that to your members too, right?
Yeah.
Not just GAR.
Yeah, I'm in agreement with you. I think it's a good thing to purchase in the contract, and that's just from my perspective.
Loli, which part was that? Which part? Loli?
This is the security awareness training. It's indicated as an option in the quantum contract that the board was reviewing.
Yes.
I agree. It should be included.
Good point. Thanks for bringing it up.
Oh, you're welcome. Thank you.
Well, I appreciate the time that you guys have taken. Certainly, if there's any other questions, feel free to reach out to us again. But I know you probably have other meetings to go to. Anything else, Sherry, before we wrap?
I think you hit all the points right on. And as the board knows, we're ready to have started yesterday. So hopefully we can get this. This is also going to save staff. You know, we're all about saving money.
Yeah.
And Ivan and his group have been very willing to work with us on the costs as well. Ivan knows the minute we walk in, okay, what kind of discount are we getting? So he's used to that already.
I was
So
gonna bring that up,
yeah,
negotiating a good price that
And
He
I have
makes it
I have
affordable.
accommodated every request, haven't I, Sherry?
yes, he has.
We're anxious to onboard. You know, we want to take this out. You are the first client for our doc record reseller thing. So we're very excited to bring this to the market. I know there are plenty of firms out there that are going to love this platform. And as an incentive, I did offer Sherry to onboard with us that we'd do some significant discounting. And I think that's in your hands right now. So if you like the platform and you like our services, we'd be happy to have you as a client. So thank you again for your time. And
Ivan, one last thing. Ryan isn't talking, but or there he is. Go ahead, Ryan. You can ask your question because I know we talked about that at the board meeting.
Yeah. Yes. So great presentation. I'd like to ask, I know, did you just say that we were your first clients on this type of a program? That we
for
would
doc
be?
record. Yeah, you
Oh,
are
doc
our
record.
first- Yeah, for doc record. Bruce, you can probably speak to this, but doc record is in its 7th release now. They've got hundreds of clients on this in the US, right? We are the first client on Guam we are the first reseller and the only reseller of doc record on Guam. So you would be our first client.
Gotcha.
Right. I was going to say, yeah, we've been around. Tristan's been in existence since 1991. We have thousands of clients who use doc record for many, many years. Yeah.
Right.
We're excited.
Is-
We're excited to work with Guam now. Absolutely.
Wonderful.
Is
So-
dot record associated with dot loop in any way?
I'm not familiar with that one, but no, Doc Record's our flagship product. The company I work for is Prism Software. That's just one of our products is Doc Record.
So when I was going over the agreement, I think you had proposed to us a 3-year with an option. Is there any way, because we're just starting this relationship now, is there any way we could do like a 1 or a 2-year with an option to extend for 1 to 2 years instead of just 3 years right off the bat and then an option after?
Good question, Ryan. First of all, the managed services agreement, I think that we have with GAR, 3 years is the minimum that we offer in that because of the onboarding, right? It's a significant effort to onboard clients to managed services. For the doc record thing, I think the value that you're going to see with an extended contract, not only is the license perpetual, but what you're getting the price break on is the maintenance for the 3-year term. If you go below that, your maintenance is going to jump. That's why we suggest if you're going to onboard and get all your documents into doc record, you're spending a lot of money to just do a 2-year contract, especially for the price you're going to pay.
If I may, also, I did bring this up at our last board meeting, and I do understand that the contract, as stated, that we reviewed stated 3 years with an automatic renewal of 1 year.
Yes.
When I had a question on that, and rather than making it an automatic 1 year, I proposed that we do it on a month-to-month so that the board can compile all the information from the past 3 years of the contract and come up with a renegotiated terms and conditions based on outcomes. What outcomes have we done? And if we need to tweak it or add to it or remove stuff, then once the board comes together and focuses on what needs to be done from the month to month after the 3-year term, then we can come up with the full term of 1 year, 2 years, whatever the case may be. But rather than an automatic 1 year, then, that was
Yeah.
what I brought to the
That's-
table.
Good point. There is the automatic 1 year, but there is also the notice of convenience for termination, right? That I think is in the contract. So if you don't want it to automatically renew, you give us notice that you're not renewing, and then that ends it, right? So
It's not
that is
of not renewing, but taking a look at renegotiating terms and conditions to establish another year
yeah.
or 2 years rather than discontinuing.
Sure, that's definitely possible. We don't know what the growth is gonna be for the platform right within GAR. We don't know all the other services that you might be requiring. So at this point, that would be a fair statement that at the end of the 3 years, we're happy to sit down and revisit the pricing. That's perfectly fine.
Yeah.
Yes, perfectly fine. It's the managed services, to Ryan's question, anything less than 3 years for us, the onboarding is just significant enough, right? That we do the 3 years, but for the doc record, the real incentive there again, right? Because the license is perpetual, whether you get it for 1 year or for 10 years. It's the maintenance part that you get the price break when it's greater than three or more, right? So that's why we offered that to you.
And I can agree with that.
Yeah. And then also one of the incentives, right, is to onboard with us to take a pricing break on the scanning. Because the initial proposal we submitted to GAR was to digitize all of your physical documents. And part of that proposal, we were willing to, give GAR a discount on the initial batch that we would do to get all your paper documents into doc record. Great questions. I hope that we answered them, and you guys are happy with the answers.
We have a great board of directors here. Very
Awesome.
proud of them.
Really good questions, though. Excellent. Well, we'll call it a wrap. And Sherry, if you have any other questions, feel free to reach out, and we'll be happy to take the next steps.
Thank you.
Everybody enjoy the weekend.
You
All right,
too.
thank you all. Thanks for your time.
Thank you, guys. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye, everybody.
Did you try the foundation?
Thank you. Bye-bye.